Welcome to another episode of Financial 15, the show where Kevin and I try to provide some knowledge, something that can improve your financial situation, do all that in 15 minutes or less. And today we're going to be doing some myth busting, definitely some myth busting for retirement myths that could be impairing your retirement. We're going to tackle those. You want to stick around.
Yeah, sticking with our recent retirement theme that we've been going on, we are the myth busters today. So what we are going to be doing, if you want to know more about retirement savings, myths, anything else along those lines or anything else, please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. We would love to have you as a regular on this. You'll learn a lot of stuff and it's all worthwhile. Or if you want to check out our website at beckerorr.com or like us on Facebook, all of those are perfect avenues to try and deal with things going forward. So that's the main thing. Today we are dealing with myths and busting the myth. So we have 4 retirement myths, Clint. Do you want to start us off with what they are and why they are a myth?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have myth number 1. We're the retirement myth busters here. We can have our own TV show based on this. The myth number 1, and I've heard this frequently, I'm sure you've heard versions of it as well, is the fact that someone might be thinking, I need $1 million to retire, or whatever number it is. $1 million used to be the number. Now I think people might think $2 million is the number, but the idea that there's somehow a set number that everyone has to attain in order to retire, and it's simply not the case. There's so many factors that go into retirement, when you're going to retire, what your lifestyle is going to be, your budget, lots of factors that go into there. So the fact that there's one number that all of us have to achieve, it simply is not the case, right? There's many people that can retire with, 500,000 or 400,000. It really depends on your situation. It certainly is achievable with different figures. You don't need the $1 million number.
No, are you the homebody that, you hit to retirement, you got some volunteering that you want to do around there, or you've got hobbies that you want to deal with to keep you at home. You're not a guy that likes to travel much, or maybe, you have a summer cottage as well. You go there and that's about it. You may not need as much as the guy who wants to spend 3 months in Arizona, who wants to take a trip to Europe or Australia once a year. There may be a lot of different scenarios. So lifestyle, you're right, is huge. That's one factor. Also, depends on what you do otherwise. If you don't do much of anything in the way of driving around places, or if you're not one that likes to eat out much, your numbers could be substantially less. But you're right. It used to be that I have to obtain this one certain number. If I don't get it, I can't retire. Well, that's part of what we have to make sure is not looked at that way. It does involve processes we're going to get to in regards to plans and stuff like that. But yeah, there's no set one number, I think, that we have to deal with. It'll all depend on a variety of different circumstances that we would go through with you.
Yeah, and you should quickly mention here, perhaps someone's lifestyle, they do want to travel the world, which is phenomenal. Good for you if that's your goal, but then you might need more than $1 million if you have that lifestyle. And also, there's lots of pieces of that financial puzzle. Maybe you have a pension from work. Maybe you have some CPP because you contributed for a number of years, so you need less in your savings bucket because you have more from those different pensions. So lots of ways you can earn that income in retirement. So that the fact that there's a unique number, I should say there's not a fact that you have that unique number, very much dependent on your situation, not a one size fits all there. But myth number 2 here, Kevin, I'm going to throw this one to you. Myth number 2, I will run out of money. That's the fear.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. We busted myth 1, so let's get on to myth number 2. I will run out of money. That's usually not the case that's going to happen. Everybody's worried that, okay, I'm going to overspend. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to live till 110 and I'm not going to have any money left because of what's going on. We don't have an expiry date on our birth certificates. We never know. So it could be long, it could be short. But what we tend to do is then we start tending to pinch the money early on in those years because we're worried that by the time we do hit 90, we're not going to have enough left. And what we really find out is by the time we're at 90, 95, now we've got this large portion of money that we had because we were so, I'm trying to think of the word, we were so frugal when we were up front that we continued on with everything else that's gone there. So the fact of not running out of money, you've also got to look at the fact that you may have a personal pension plan that's continuing to pay. You've also got CPP and OAS. These are other things that are going to continue to at least provide you a source of income. So chances of running out of money, very, very thin unless you have some sort of a spending scenario that you've never looked at beforehand.
Yeah, it does happen. There's always outliers. There's always someone that spends more than they should. But the idea here is there's the mindset, and this is quite common throughout your working career. You're taught to save, right? And you build those habits. I'm going to be saving. I'm going to be spending less than I need to, put that extra money away, and suddenly get in retirement, you're supposed to spend. It's hard to make that shift.
Exactly.
And I can understand where that mentality would come from. You want to continue to save in retirement, but that's what you plan for, right? You plan to enjoy your lifestyle. You plan to do a little bit of spending. And often in the early years when we have better health in retirement, just a fact of life. As we age, often the health can become a bit of a concern. So you want to certainly enjoy retirement, but definitely enjoy those early years of retirement. So will I run out of money? I say that comes down to planning. If you have a good financial
Yes.
plan, you should have some confidence that'll not be the case. And then you can spend the money without the guilt and actually enjoy your retirement. Myth number 3, this is kind of a whole different topic here, but it gets to the government, gets to pensions, the idea that we're not going to be able to count on CPP or OAS when it comes to our retirement. Is that the case?
No, and I mean, and that's the biggest myth. I mean, I can go back 20 or 30 years when I sat there and I started when I was working in a bank, and most of the employees were worried that I got to take my CPP at 60 because by the time, if I don't now, it's going to be gone. It's not going to be able to sustain itself, and we're not going to deal with that. Well, presently today, there's so much money in CPP that the extended belief is that it'll last at least the next 75 years. And OAS, yeah, should it be there? I would assume it would be a very unpopular thing for any government to come in and say, we're eliminating your OAS. Maybe ages move or things along those lines. So there will be government money provided for your retirement. So this is not one that I have to worry about. And as we've done, as you mentioned beforehand, the financial planning aspect, we usually look at 65 as the age to start to take this, as opposed to, oh, I've got to take it today at 60. Because if you have other alternatives, there are things that you can deal with. So yeah, I would say that counting on CPP and OAS is more of a reality than a non-reality. Don't you agree?
I would. I absolutely would. And I get part of this usually, and we're not going to get into that, but often it's tied into, I don't like the government. It's not mismanaged, whatever the assumption there is. But for clarification, CPP, the Canada Pension Plan, that's a separate pot of money that we put into, that the employers put into. It's not in the government budget. It's a separate pot. There's about $475 billion in there as of the end of last year. And you mentioned they do audits regularly. The last audit had a 75-year time window and said it is certainly fully fundable and viable over that 75-year period. So we definitely a good check mark in terms of longevity for CPP. I think you can count on that. Old age security, that's a separate system. That one, yeah, the government does have to put that in the budget every year. So if the government's ever trying to cut expenses, they could tweak OAS a little bit to try to save some money. That is certainly possible. But to completely get rid of it, I agree with you. That'd be a political nightmare for any government to just get rid of the OAS payments. But could they tweak it? Probably. But get rid of it, I don't think so. So I believe you can count on both government pensions, CPP and OAS, and it makes sense to incorporate that into your financial plan. The last myth here, and we're kind of going through different categories. I should mention, we'll link to some of our other videos that dive a little deeper in all these pieces. We talked recently about the 3 phases of retirement. That'd certainly be applicable for the second myth, will I run out of money? So we'll link to that one. We just talked about CPP and OAS. We do have a video that does a deep dive into CPP as well, into OAS. We'll link to those too. And then the last myth here, Kevin, I'll throw it to you. The myth that I will spend less in retirement. I don't need to save as much money because I'm going to spend less in retirement.
Yeah, and that's always the theory. I'm working now and I've got this expense, I've got this expense, I've got this expense, and I've got income coming in. So I don't have to worry about it because I can always make sure I'm paying my expenses based on what I'm earning. But when I hit retirement, I don't have to drive to work anymore. I don't have to buy the suits. I don't have to look at this. I'm going to spend so much less money in retirement. It's going to be ridiculous. Maybe 60% of what I'm doing now. That is a big myth. As we've shown in the videos you mentioned previously, the retirement smile and everything else, you tend to spend almost as much when you retire as you did just before you left retirement. Why? You're active. You can do things. You're probably taking trips that you weren't beforehand. You're going out for meals more often. Your hobbies may involve more money that's coming on. So in the beginning, you probably will spend pretty much what you're spending right now. Maybe you have tickets to Bombers or Jet games or things along those lines. Those aren't disappearing just because you hit retirement probably. So the myth that you're going to spend less immediately when you get into retirement, no, I don't see that happening. It may happen a little further on, as we mentioned in the smile. But again, the fact that it's going to start right off the hop, I don't see it. What do you think, Clint?
Yeah, I would agree. And we'll link to the video we talk about spending patterns for retirees based on the data. But typically, folks you get used to a lifestyle. It's kind of a habit. And the idea that suddenly that lifestyle is going to dramatically change, the spending can certainly be different. Maybe you no longer have a mortgage. Maybe the kids have moved out. But the idea that your lifestyle is going to completely change in the first years of retirement, probably not the case. So your spending pattern will be fairly similar. Frankly, I think it's just a little lazy financial planning. Sometimes you'll hear 60% or 70% of your pre-retirement income is what's required. I mean, it's a nice rule of thumb. You can just think 60, 70% and not have to worry about a budget and go through the financial planning steps. But I don't think it's very helpful. And I think that's where this really stems from, is that kind of lazy financial planning. I just have to think of 60, 70% and I'm good. That's not always the case. Better to have a unique plan that fits your needs And frankly, normally you don't spend that much less in the early years of retirement. So we've tackled 4 myths there. A little bit of myth busting when it comes to retirement. If people have a question, Kevin, or another myth they want you to tackle, where should they find you?
They should find us at chatwithclintonandkevin.com. We're more than happy to answer any questions on these retirement myths because we've run through them fairly quickly and we can go into them in a little bit more detail. Again, we've mentioned things about what you should look for, what you shouldn't look for. And we also have more stuff on our website to be able to find us at beckerorr.com or look at the YouTube channel videos we put together. But yeah, we want to make sure that we're answering your questions because each person's an individual and you're going to have different questions than somebody else. So make sure you contact us, the link below, and we'd be more than happy to get in touch with you as fast as we could. Any final comments to close off with, Clint?
I think we finished it well there. So everyone take care and stay safe.